पानं शामदारं शान प्रेमार्पणं शामदारं शान जानम दुःख जाय संपद तव श्रीपद भव गस्पद वारियथा प्रेमार्पण क्षमदर्शन प्रेमार्पण क्षमदर्शन जग जन दुःख जाय नमो नमो प्रभु भाग्यमनाथित नमो नमो प्रभु भाग्यमनाथित मन वचन का धात प्रभु मन वचन का धात ज्योतिर ज्योतिर जल हृदि कंदर ज्योतिर ज्योतिर जल हृदि कंदर तुमि तम भंजन हार प्रभु तुमि तम भंजन हार नमो नमो प्रभु भाग्यमनाथित नमो नमो प्रभु भाग्यमनाथित मन वचन का धात प्रभु मन वचन का धात ज्योतिर ज्योतिर जल हृदि कंदर ज्योतिर ज्योतिर जल हृदि कंदर तुमि तम भंजन हार प्रभु तुमि तम भंजन हार लंग रंग भंग बाजे अंग संगृतम लंग रंग भंग बाजे अंग संगृतम गायचे छंद भक्त वृंद आरती तुम्हार गायचे छंद भक्त वृंद आरती तुम्हार जय जय आरती तुम्हार हर हर आरती तुम्हार शिव शिव आरती तुम्हार खानदान भाव बंधन जग बंधन बंदे तुम्हार जय श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। ओम ह्रीं ऋतं त्वमचलो गुणजित् गुणेभ्यः नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पादपद्मं मोहं कषं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो भक्तिर्भगश्च भजनं भवभेदकारी गच्छन्तलं सुविपुलं गमनाय तत्त्वं वक्तुं शत्रुधृतोऽपि हृदये न मे भाति किञ्चित् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो तेजस्तरन्ति तरसा त्वयि तृप्त तृष्णा रागे कृते ऋतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणोर्मि नाशं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो कृतं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारी श्रान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नाथ यस्मादहं त्वशरणो जगदेक गम्य तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ सर्वमङ्गल माङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। सृष्टि स्थिति विनाशानां शक्ति भूते सनातने गुणाश्रये गुणमये नारायणी नमोस्तुते। शारदा शरणागत दीनार्थ परित्राण परायणे सर्वस्यार्ति हरे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते जय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय महामाई की जय, जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय, जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय। प्रकृतिं परमां अभयां वरदां नररूपधरां जनतापहरां शरणागत सेवक तोषकरीं प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगतां गुणहीन सुतान् अपराधयुतान् कृपयाद्समुद्धर मोहगतान् तरणीं भवसागर पारकरीं प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगतां विषयं कुसुमं परिहृत सदा चरणाम्बुरामृत शान्तिशुधां पिबभृङ्गमनो भवरोगहरां प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगतां। कृपां कुरु महादेवी श्रुतेषु प्रणतेषु च चरणाश्रयदानेन कृपामयि नमोस्तुते। लज्जापटावृते नित्यं शारदे ज्ञानदायिके पापेभ्यो न सदा रक्ष कृपामयि नमोस्तुते। रामकृष्णगतप्राणां तन्नाम श्रवणप्रियां तद्भावरञ्जिताकारां प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। पवित्रं चरितं यस्य पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै दिव्यै नमो नमः। देवीं प्रसन्नां प्रणतां त्रिहन्त्रीं योगीन्द्रपूज्यां योगधर्मपात्रीं तां शारदां भक्ति विज्ञानदात्रीं दयास्वरूपां प्रणमामि नित्यम् स्नेहेन बध्नासि मनोष्मदीयम् दोषान् शेषान् सगुनीकरोषि आहेतुनानो दयाशेषदोषान् साङ्ख्ये गृहीत्वा यदिदं विचित्रम् प्रसीद मातर्विनयेन याचे नित्यं भव श्रेयःवतीषु तेषु प्रेमैकबिन्दुं चिरदग्धचित्ते विषिञ्च चित्तं कुरु नाशु शान्तम् जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः।
Hello. Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchet Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. सुनाई नहीं दे रहा शायद. हाँ, hello. Yeah. Okay. So we were discussing this lecture of Vivekananda on realization based on the Kathopanishad, and we had come to this one rather extensive paragraph where he says, Vivekananda gives a free translation of something. We had read the original mantras from the Kathopanishad, so I'll come to that last mantra that we had read, the shloka, and then we'll come back to Vivekananda's explanation, because I think there is something rather important there. We'll mention the shloka, or mantra, and Vivekananda's translation, and then proceed. So this is where we had ended last time. Yama said, that which is beyond never rises before the mind of a thoughtless child deluded by the folly of riches. This world exists, the other does not. Thinking thus, they come again and again under my power. To understand this truth is very difficult. Many, even hearing it continually, do not understand it, for the speaker must be wonderful, so must be the hearer. The teacher must be wonderful, so must be the taught. Neither is the mind to be disturbed by vain arguments, for it is no more a question of argument, it is a question of fact. So we had concluded with this particular line, neither is the mind to be disturbed by vain arguments, for it is no more a question of argument, it is a question of fact. And the original mantra from the Kathopanishad is the following: Na esha tarkena mati apaneya proktanyenaiva sugnaya preshtha yang tvamapa satya dhritir vatasi twadrigno bhuyat nachiketa prashta. So this is where we had concluded last time. And this particular verse, it's rather significant because it's apt to be misinterpreted by people. So what it says is, Na esha tarkena mati apaneya. And the way Vivekananda translates it, and he uses one particular adjective which is very important here. The mind is not to be disturbed by vain arguments. The key word here is vain. Yeah? And this is, when one refers to tarka here, it's precisely these vain arguments that one is referring to. What is the point of these vain arguments? So it's not really the discussion itself or the argumentation itself that is being regarded as an impediment or an obstacle, but the fact that it is in vain. What does it mean to have arguments in vain? It's basically the intent or the purpose of these arguments. See, there is a small difference between these two words, vichara and tarka. Vichara, particularly sat, asat vichara, is something that is regarded as a practice, as an essential practice, leading to the discernment of truth. On the other hand, vain argumentation is regarded as an obstacle. Both of these things necessitate an analytical mind. So, analytical mind can manifest itself in the form of arguments, pros and cons, and that analysis. Now, what is it that differentiates? What is it that differentiates that argument which is for the perception of truth and truth alone, and that which is in vain? So clearly, when one is talking about naesha, when one is saying this, naesha tarkena mati apaneya, one is actually referring to arguments which have an intention that is different from the identification and discernment of truth. It could be for various reasons. It could be in order to project to others how smart one is, how intelligent one is, how clever one is, in one of two forms, either to win an argument or to make sure that the opposition is beaten. Yeah. Jalpa and Vitanda, as they're called in this Tarka Shastra. And so when one is, so it's really the subjective intent. If and it's really the quality of mind, the attitude of mind behind the same question and answer that leads to this differentiation between vain argumentation on the one hand and sat asat vichara, or vichara in its best form as a practice, on the other. In the first, the argumentation is to establish oneself in this physical reality that we regard as ourselves in the world, either by defeating the opposition or by proving one's own superiority. So the limited being's superiority. The other is for the identification of an impersonal or a more universal truth. So one of our senior monks from whom we had learnt Vedanta used to make this distinction in the context of this. Atma jigyasa, as we've said before, jigyasa comes from this root gya, which means a desire to know the truth. And questioning fueled by this desire for truth. This is what the real meaning of jigyasa is. So Atma jigyasa is what leads to dharma. Is what leads to sustenance. Dharma literally does not mean religion. It means that which sustains one. So sustenance basically, and not physical sustenance of a core psyche. Yeah. That comes from this enquiry into truth. Atma jigyasa iti dharma. And what is the other? Atma pratishtha is samsara. In the literal sense of the word samsara, samyak sarati iti samsara, that which constantly moves. So which means, in order to establish oneself in the world, that is, so the attempt at establishing oneself in the world is really trying to establish oneself in a situation that is caught within the framework of space-time causation. That is exactly what is referred to as samsara. Yeah? So it is exactly this intent, whether it is directed towards a changeful world, something that is transient, or whether it is directed towards truth which transcends bounds of time-space causation, that differentiates this vain argument from the seeking of truth. For instance, here is the thing, here is a test. How would one test it? Suppose one has there's an argument that's going on, and then not oneself but somebody else offers a more convincing argument and brings out something which is ignored. The person who is arguing immediately accepts it as true. This is an indication that the person who was indulging in this argumentation is more concerned about ascertaining the truth rather than establishing himself or herself, or establishing his or her personal opinion as superseding that of others. And it is, on the other hand, if the other person is offering deep and fundamental arguments and one refuses to accept the validity of these arguments because of stubbornness or obstinacy, then it is a clear indication that one is indulging in these vain arguments and not in a seeking for truth. So this is the real difference between tarka on the one hand and vichara on the other. The first is directed, roughly speaking, the first tarka is directed towards the world, whereas vichara is directed inwards. And this is the same thing. This is basically the idea that is expanded by Vivekananda in the rest of this paragraph. So the mind is not to be disturbed by vain arguments, for it is no more a question of argument, it is a question of fact. This first argument is basically this outward directed cutting of logic piecing. The second question of fact means ascertainment of truth. We have always heard, and now he points at us to a certain fallacious way of interpreting this statement. We have always heard that every religion insists on our having faith. We have been taught to believe blindly. Well, this idea of blind faith is objectionable, no doubt. But analyzing it, we find that behind it is a very great truth. See, this refers back to the place where the story of the Upanishad, where it starts, where Nachiketa asks his father, "Who do you give me to?" And as Shankara says, Shraddha avivesa so amanyata. In the Upanishad, it says the Shraddha avivesha, and this Shraddha is translated by Shankara as Astikya Buddhi. Astikya Buddhi does not mean kind of blind faith or belief without or belief without argumentation or belief without reasoning. It means this conviction that there is some truth in this and it will repay investigation. That's all it means. And this is exactly what is underscored by Vivekananda here. When we talk about faith, what it really means, and this is really where a misunderstanding of that word, both from non-believers and from believers. I mean, people who claim to be great believers in various theological ideas or God, etc., they fall prey to it. And probably because they fall prey to it, non-believers, atheists, agnostics, etc., think that this word faith means just this much. What does it mean? It means accepting something without investigation. That is certainly not the real connotation of faith, because the word faith has been derived from various sources. So it's really what is the correct connotation in a particular context. So in the context of Vedanta, the correct word that would replace it in Sanskrit is Shraddha, which is this kind of dynamic faith, which means first a conviction that there is truth in this and it's worth investigating. Second, backed by dynamism, which means not some intellectual acceptance or rejection of something, but action on the basis of this conviction. This is really the way we should interpret this word faith, and this is really after having removed from outside it these various theological doctrines which are not really relevant. What it really means is what we read now. The mind is not to be ruffled by vain arguments, because argument will not help us to know God. It is a question of fact and not of argument. All argument and reasoning must be based upon certain perceptions. Without these, there cannot be any argument. Reasoning is the method of comparison between certain facts which we have already perceived. If these perceived facts are not there already, there cannot be any reasoning. If this is true of external phenomena, why should it not be so of the internal? The chemist takes certain chemicals and certain results are produced. This is a fact. You see it, sense it, and make that the basis on which to build all your chemical arguments. So with the physicists, so with all other sciences. All knowledge must stand on perception of certain facts, and upon that we have to build our reasoning. But curiously enough, the vast majority of mankind think, especially at the present time, that no such perception is possible in religion, that religion can only be apprehended by vain arguments. Therefore, we are told not to disturb the mind by vain arguments. Religion is a question of fact, not of talk. We have to analyze our own souls and to find what is there. We have to understand it and to realize what is understood. That is religion. No amount of talk will make religion. So here's the thing. Again, Vivekananda is using the word religion here in the deepest sense of the term, not specifically not in the sense of any organized religion. In a more precise sense, what he means here is essentially the same scientific spirit of enquiry that we take to the external world, directed towards our internal world. It is that which is being talked about here. And like in any science, the first thing is to set up your laboratory and perform the experiments with great diligence. This will give rise to the basic foundational facts on the basis of which one can reason. So what we do when we deal with the usual physical sciences is we have our attention directed towards the world and we perceive certain things through our senses. Take those things as the starting point and then put the machinery of enquiry behind them. I'll just give one example. So what Newton did, this discovery of the theory of gravity, was basically he unified. See, there are these certain simple perceptions. You pick an object near the surface of the earth, let it falls down. This is one particular phenomenon. On the other hand, if you look at things at a cosmic scale, planets go round and round the sun. What Newton found was one unifying principle which unifies such disparate phenomena. things are lifted and let loose near the surface of the earth fall down. The moon moves around the earth moves around the sun. These things do not look like the same phenomenon to a crude mind. But when you have a great scientific mind like Newton's, he finds the unifying principle of knowledge behind these disparate phenomena. Fast forward a few hundred years, and then you come to Einstein's discovery of relativity. It was a theory which unified things at a much greater scale. Space, time, and gravity, all of that unified into one conceptual framework. This is what general relativity is about. And it actually provides an explanation for an experienced fact, namely what is called the precession of Mercury. It was, if Newton's theory was absolutely correct, then Mercury would go around the sun in a perfect elliptic orbit. It was noticed that that's not the case. There's a little wobble about the elliptic orbit. So this wobble, which is a kind of a correction to the first order theory, which is an ellipse, is perfectly explained by Einstein, and therefore, if you have a theory which unifies many things and explains something new, a fact which was not explained before, then the theory gains weight. So a theory is not something that is some abstract nonsense. I mean, crude minds can come up with absurd absurd theories. So for instance, I think in another lecture Vivekananda says, how do the tides happen? Oh, somewhere in the middle of the ocean there is a huge mountain made of sponge, and there are demons dancing on top of it. When the demons land on the sponge, all the water that is there absorbed in the sponge are squeezed and it goes out. Then when they jump up, the water is again absorbed. So this is a theory, but it introduces something completely extraneous, something that is not from the inner nature of the phenomenon. In other words, it's really following this externally directed mind to posit things which can neither be proved nor disproved without proper investigation. In other words, it is idle speculation. And the same is true. I think one of the reasons why the scientific mind for about a century or more than maybe a couple of centuries have been annoyed and moved away from organized religions is precisely this, that theological doctrines without any basis in fact, without any basis in investigation and ascertainment, have been thrust on people to make them mindless and unthinking. And so it was thrown overboard. And it's only relatively recently, I would say maybe over the last couple of decades, maybe a little more, that the core point that religions were really supposed to be about, namely the study of the universal subjective nature of human beings, more generally that of all beings, that has come up more recently. I'm referring vaguely to this, what is nowadays called the hard problem of consciousness. But anyway, it's a more scientific paradigm, which means that the vague theological queries that were there before have now been stripped of the speculative content And at least the problem is becoming clearer and clearer and being projected in impersonal scientific terms. It's at this level where you use the same analytical mind to either discover truths about the external world, physical sciences, or the internal world. That's unfortunately, these words are loaded and they carry a lot of baggage. But so let us use these more neutral terms. Yeah. So essentially, a scientific investigation of this internal world of human beings, which somehow or the other we take for granted is a universal experience. Yeah? That analysis is what is being talked about here. Without that systematic experimentation with observation, analysis, inference directed towards the internal world, we will not be able to arrive at the ground, at the ground level data from which all these religious ideas spring forth. And that somehow or the other is something that all of us carry within ourselves. But unfortunately, mostly ignore. That's not such a strange thing. Why? Because we are accustomed to thinking of this world outside as real and our mind and its functioning as something that is imaginary. So much so that the fundamental ways by which we grasp knowledge, the instrument which is closer to ourselves, is ignored and replaced by those things which the instrument grasps. The study here that is being encouraged is directing the gaze towards this more internal organ that we call the mind. And this is what he's saying. Curiously enough, the vast majority of mankind think, especially at the present time, that no such perception is possible in religion. No such perception means no direct perception. And that religion can only be apprehended by vain arguments. Therefore, we are told not to disturb the mind by vain arguments. Basically saying that, look, this kind of intellectual speculation about deep matters is a completely useless exercise. Religion is a question of fact, not of talk. We have to analyze our own souls and to find what is there. We have to understand it and to realize what is understood. That is religion. No amount of talk will make religion. So the question whether there is a God or not can never be proved by argument, for the arguments are as much on one side as on the other. There are as many arguments for atheism as there are for belief. So it's really, endless amounts of argumentation have been going on both sides without arriving at any reasonable conclusion. So what really is required? But if there is a God, this is what he's saying. If there is a God, he is in our own hearts. Have you ever seen him? The question as to whether this world exists or not has not yet been decided. And the debate between the idealists and the realists is endless. Yet we know that the world exists, that it goes on. We only change the meaning of words. So with all the questions of life, we must come to facts. See, here is the thing. First, he talks about the reality, the universal reality about the experienced objects in the internal world. Culmination of that, the one unifying principle behind all subjective experiences, is what is referred to as consciousness or Sat or Chit, etc. in Vedanta. And the unification of all external realities is called the world or Jagat. Viewed through a mind directed outward, everything together is called the world. Viewed internally, the substratum or unification, locus of unification of all subjective experiences, is what is called consciousness. But unless one investigates, which means if you start with the external world and look at it through a particular lens, say the physics lens, so you start off with the physical reality of the world and ask, what is real about it? What is, and there, as soon as you are asking the question, what is real about this, you are really trying to find a unifying principle behind a range of observed phenomena. As we said at the very beginning, phenomena like things, disparate phenomena like things being raised and allowed and then you let them go and they fall by the action of gravity, or planets revolving around the sun. Yeah? A unifying principle. But where does this principle of knowledge lie? It's not in the words that encapsulate them, but they are actually representing something fundamental in our minds, a framework, a unifying way of looking at things that develops in our minds, in our hearts, through which we look at the world and comprehend it. What is being asked here is that same rigor, same precision, same intensity, except that the objects that we are looking at are our subjective experiences. This gathering of all data, at all points of our existence, is exactly what mindfulness is about. In the Buddhist terminology, it is exactly what Vedanta calls pratibodha viditam matam. It is what Vivekananda calls doing your work with full attention, any work, and it is what the more dualist or devotionally inclined call the practice of the presence of God. But this is this one practice. What is that one practice? It does not necessitate a belief in any theological system. It is basically saying, are you really interested in being, in developing a scientific temper with respect to your own subjective experience? If the answer is yes, so it presupposes your interest in the matter. And if the answer to that question is yes, that one is interested, then the first step is to collect that raw data, the raw data without bias. Difficult thing to do basically because the bias is already hidden in the instrument. So the mind needs to develop this capacity to stand back, step back from itself and observe all the phenomena that are coming and going. Joy, woe, sorrow, attachment, aversion, all of these things which are holding ourselves, things which are holding us back from objectively treating ourselves. Yeah? So it's basically, once that is understood, then one realizes that this is really a question of perception of fact, not about argumentation. It does not matter what name you give that subjective experience, whether you call it an experience of shunya or consciousness or God or whatever. Yeah? Now that's not important. And in the very next line says that it's just exactly the same situation with respect to the external world. We have no justification for it. It's just that our Awareness tells us that this world is real. That's the basis for which so we don't bother to ask ourselves, what is it in us that grants reality to this world? And the thing is, what has happened is that we are accustomed to directing two fundamental faculties of the mind, awareness and attention, to the external world. It's just this habit, nothing else. It is precisely this habit, awareness and attention directed to the world, that lends it reality. What one is asking one to do here is to train these faculties themselves, awareness and attention, towards their own source. So it's, see again one of the Upanishads, avritta chakshu amritattvam icchan. Avritta chakshu literally means covering up the eyes. What it means is that the focus of attention is the source from which this faculty of knowledge comes out through our eyes, so to speak. Can we direct our attention to that source? Then we will be coming out of this. And so amritattva vicchan. So it's basically, that is the route, the path to the aspect of ourselves which is not caught in these mortal frame. So it does not mean that one subscribes to a theological belief system of reincarnation or heaven, hell, etc., etc. None of that. But at this moment here, in the here and now, what is it that allows, that on the basis of which all these ideas come and go, space, time, causation, this world, me, you, etc., etc. Yet we know that the world exists, that it goes on. We only change the meaning of words. So with all the questions of life, we must come to facts. There are certain religious facts which, as in external science, have to be perceived, and upon them religion will be built. So therefore, if somebody is not, I think we have said here that the third largest section of the population today is not aligned to any particular organized religion, making it a very substantial number. However, their subjective reality is there with them. For those who are interested in studying it, that study should take the real name. That study is really what is called what is called religion, not or spirituality, whatever you want to call it. Give it a label. Of course, the extreme claim that you must believe every dogma of a religion is degrading to the human mind. The man who asks you to believe everything degrades himself, and if you believe, degrades you too. Here is the thing. This is a very emphatic and clear statement, and it's a severe indictment of essentially thrusting one's belief system on another. The man who asks you to believe everything degrades himself. Why? Basically because such people are insecure. They have not found this on the basis of actual investigation, but they have heard something, made some messy interpretation of that, and throw it on others. And if you believe their statement, it degrades you too. The sages of the world have only the right to tell us that they have analyzed their minds and have found these facts. And if we do the same, we shall also believe, and not before. So what these things are, is that what is the best thing that they can do? They can inspire and pique our interest. Our interest in this investigation that we are on, assuming that we have started off on this inquiry, on this self-inquiry, on this inquiry into our essential subjective nature, that process can be inspired, just as somebody who is a beginning musician can be inspired by a great musician. That's all. And if we do the same, if we actually proceed with that, we do something on the basis of it, not talk, not sit around in an armchair and spin a bunch of theories. If we do the same, we shall also believe and not perform. That is all that there is in religion. This particular paragraph it comes out very emphatically about exactly what is involved and what is not, what is essential and what is completely irrelevant. But you must always remember this, that as a matter of fact, 99.9% of those who attack religion have never analyzed their minds, have never struggled to get at the facts. Yeah. So on the one hand, you have the religious fanatics who expect that you are supposed to it's needed that you buy into whatever their theological doctrines and belief systems are. And on the other hand, you have the proselytizing atheists who basically go around without having actually done the job of analyzing their own minds and thrusting their belief in non-belief on others. Both have failed to understand. I mean, it's basically like saying, I mean, somebody, suppose I am completely deaf to music. And I start saying, oh, no, all of this music is complete nonsense. Or I say, okay, no, this kind of classical music played in the Philippines is the only kind of classical music worth listening to. The first is the proselytizing atheist. The second is the religious fanatic. Both are points of view that are to be discarded without mercy. Essentially, neither position is really interested in the truth. Both positions are really interested in dulling this faculty of inquiry. It's basically saying what is really contained behind all these, whether a person declares himself irreligious or whether the person declares himself an atheist and tries to thrust that belief system on another people. What one is basically really saying is that, look, I have lost interest in this enquiry, and this is where my enquiry stopped. You better stop your enquiry at this stage and take my conclusions, and because then that is going to salve my my sense of having a tribe of mindless people around me who believe in the same way as I do. It's this kind of silliness which is advocated both by the religious fanatic and the proselytizing atheist. So that's what is being said. They have never struggled to get at the facts, because it's a real struggle. I mean, it's something that one has to do every moment of one's life. Yeah? It requires a certain measure of commitment, which those who have not done will never understand. So their arguments do not have any weight against religion any more than the words of a blind man who cries out, "You are all fools who believe in the sun," would affect us. So he is basically saying, we have talked about deafness to music. Here the example that Vivekananda is talking about is being blind and not being able to see the sun, and then denouncing those who can. Now, just before we conclude, I just want to say one thing. Yes, all that's very fine. However, there's a large number of people who can actually see. And therefore, is the same true for religion? For these, what is in this generalized sense? The answer is probably yes. Because in everyone's experience, in every person's experience, there are these moments at least where there's a clear perception without thoughts interfering. This direct perception of reality, even if it comes in a flash, for a moment and then maybe goes away, is an illustration of this particular phenomenon. I mean, it's a moment of mindfulness, so to speak. If the truth is to be hunted for behind all of this, it is in these experimental data of flashes of mindfulness or moments of clarity. Yeah? It is in this experimentally observed data, which I think all of us have had at some point or the other, that one needs to find the truth. This is exactly what is meant by mindfulness. This is exactly what is meant by applying one's full mind to the present moment. It is exactly what is meant by this Pratibodha Viditam. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.